Update 1.6 is on our doorstep, and before we dive headlong into this SMG best-in-slot gear optimization video, I wanted to give you a timestamp for all of the different sections of this resource guide, including Update 1.6 changes to SMGs, best weapon mods, weapon talents, gear optimization guide, skills guide, and finally, the stat recap. This is going to be a bit longer than one of my standard videos, so without further delay, let's get started. What's going on, agents? It's LtBuzzLitebeer, and the first topic that we need to cover is how SMGs are now in our current meta 1.5 and how they will be changed for the upcoming update 1.6. Critical hit damage, which is the native talent for SMGs, will be switched over to critical hit chance in update 1.6. Now, right now, SMGs can roll with anywhere between 29 to 39% critical hit damage as their native weapon talent, and you need to understand that this is the #1 single source of critical hit damage currently in the game. The soft cap of critical hit damage will not be changing from our current meta over to the update 1.6 and currently stands at 123%. Anything past this soft cap will give your characters diminished returns for points placed into this stat. Now, quite simply, players will have to source and scrounge in every area of their character builds in order to reach the 123% soft cap, since the readily available 29 to 39% that comes native with your SMG will be removed. On the other hand, sources for critical hit chance are easily found, and surpassing the 60% soft cap is quite easy, especially since the new native SMG talent of critical hit chance should roll on your SMGs somewhere around the 22% mark once update 1.6 goes live. In simple to understand terms, we now have many more sources and amounts of critical hit chance than we need to hit the soft cap of 60%, and not enough and in way too small amounts of critical hit damage to hit the 123% soft cap. Therefore, this change from damage to chance makes this SMG Best in Slot field guide video that much more important. It will show you exactly how to mod your SMG, the specific weapon talents to choose, and even where to find the necessary stat rolls on gear, weapon talents, and skills in order to maximize the efficiency of your SMG build in Update 1.6. With all of this out of the way, let's get into which weapon mods are available for your SMG and go through each mod in order to select the optimal attachments for your SMG build. First up are the muzzle mods, of which there are 11 available for the SMGs, and all of these muzzle mods will roll with 1 high main stat bonus and 2 lower rolls or minor stat bonuses. As you can see from the chart, the Loud Vent Break, Osprey 45 Suppressor, Tyrant Suppressor, and Small Suppressor all come in 2 different variants, with the differences being the main stat bonus. For the purpose of our build, we can eliminate any muzzle mods with stability or accuracy as their high stat bonus, as SMGs are inherently stable and accurate and would be a waste of a mod. In addition, decreased or increased threat mods will be eliminated, as they provide no gains to critical hit percentage or critical hit damage. This leaves us with 3 mods left to consider: the critical hit damage Loud Vent Break, critical hit chance Tyrant Suppressor, and critical hit chance Small Suppressor. The critical hit chance mods can look enticing until you look at how much additional percentage they actually provide. At 8.5% maximum roll, these 2 mods give you a gain of about 2.4 times that of their lower base roll counterparts for critical hit percentage. In comparison, the critical hit damage Loud Vent Break gives you a gain of over 5 times that of its lower stat roll counterparts, and at a critical hit damage percentage gain of 20.5% is the clear choice for our SMG build. You are trying for the maximum of a 20.5% critical hit damage, along with a minor stat bonus of 3.5% critical hit chance. If the second minor stat bonus is for headshot damage, consider this a perfectly rolled muzzle mod for your build. Next up are the Underbarrel attachments, which include small grips and laser pointers, and there are 6 different attachments to choose from. We can instantly remove both the laser pointers and the angled grip, as they only provide gains in stability and accuracy, and for the reasons we have already mentioned, would be a waste for our SMG build. This leaves us with 3 grips, 2 of which roll with high critical hit damage and 1 that provides exceptional gains in optimal range. At 49.5% gains to optimal range, the vertical grip can add much needed range to your SMG, and using as an example, the ever popular MP5 and its 16 meter optimal range, could boost your range up to nearly 24 meters, which is just a few meters short of assault rifle optimal ranges. In addition, the only other mod that can roll high percentages for optimal range are a few scopes, but they can only roll for half the percentage gain the vertical grip can add. Even with all of this positive reinforcement, it still isn't enough to make us choose optimal range over what the short grip and the small grip can give us in potential critical hit damage. Either of these grips can roll for a maximum of 20.5% critical hit damage and should be your underbarrel attachment of choice for your optimized SMG build. After that, it really doesn't matter, but I would prefer to have the small gains in reload speed and optimal range over stability and accuracy. Keep in mind, those of you that use the SMG9 and PP19, you will not be given the option of equipping an underbarrel attachment. Magazine mods are available in 4 different variants and cannot roll with additional headshot damage. I would instantly remove the high velocity magazine as it rolls with a high main stat bonus of critical hit percentage, and we can easily hit the 60% critical hit percentage soft cap without this small gain. I would also pass on the quick release magazine as SMGs inherently reload quickly and we could use our main stat bonus more wisely with this mod. The heavy firing spring could provide a little additional rate of fire, especially to slower firing SMGs like the UMP45 or PP19. However, for our optimized build, we need to select the extended mag and its potential 124% additional magazine size. Both minor stat bonuses for the extended magazine are extremely important, and you need to try and get an extended magazine with the additional 3.5% critical hit chance and 4% critical hit damage in order to effectively maximize your SMG build. Finally, we have reached the scopes or optics, and there are 19 different scopes to choose from. I did include the family of large scopes as they can be equipped on the MP5ST, Vector, PP19, and UMP45. However, for your build purposes, these large optics should be instantly eliminated as they have the incorrect main stat bonuses for an optimized SMG build. This leaves us with 12 options, and after further elimination of optics that have the tan designation as they roll in minimal percentages, we are left with 9 optics to truly consider. Next, you should eliminate scopes that have high main stat bonuses of stability, accuracy, and optimal range, leaving you with just 2 choices left. Either the Pro Red Dot Sight or C79 3.4 times scope should be considered for your build, as both of them can roll up to a maximum of 20.5% critical hit damage. In addition, make sure one of the minor stat bonuses is as close to the 3.5% critical hit chance percentage as you can get. Weapon talents have always been a source of endless RNG possibilities and have literally driven players crazy, and not to mention broke from the spiraling cost of recalibrations. Trust me, I know. For our 1.6 optimized SMG build, I have found 2 weapon talents that are a necessity and 4 others that you may want to consider. The first of the 2 weapon talents that you must have in this build is Deadly. With a flat 15% gain to critical hit damage with no qualifiers, Deadly is simply an SMG talent that you can't go without. You will need to find as many large portions of critical hit damage that you can find, and at a 15% gain, Deadly needs to be on the top of your list for weapon talents. The second and no less important weapon talent that you will need is Destructive. Unlike assault rifles, SMGs have no native enemy armor damage, and since most NPCs and all players in the DZ are running with ample armor, the ability to cut through their armor more efficiently and quickly is at a premium. Again, at a 15% gain with no qualifiers, Destructive should be right up there with Deadly on your must-haves list. The next 4 weapon talents can be selected to your taste and are not required for this 1.6 SMG optimized build. However, they are in some way connected to crit and therefore worth mentioning. Vicious grants you 10% more critical hit chance when you have more than 2 segments of health, but is instantly removed once you take enough damage to dip into that second segment. This weapon talent can be a bit too situational, as we are constantly taking damage and rarely in our 3rd health bar when in combat. Still, for players wanting to exceed the 60% critical hit chance soft cap, here is a conditional 10%. Fierce increases your critical hit chance by a flat 5% when using your SMG, but is too little a gain and entirely not needed for this build. Still, since it is a weapon talent tied to crit, I felt it worthy of mention. Adept is a lesser known talent that increases your critical hit chance by 7.5% for 15 seconds after activating a skill. Activating your pulse while in close to enemies in tandem with this weapon talent could prove interesting, as you could literally add 20 to 30% to your critical hit chance. However, Adept is limited to 15 seconds, and if you are playing on Underground or Survival and are constantly being placed under the Disrupted status effect, you will not get the chance to activate this talent. The final weapon talent worth mentioning is Self-Preserved, and I know a lot of you have totally forgotten about this talent, me included. It heals the player for 3% of damage dealt by critical hits, and since you will need to be in close to enemies to deal the maximum amount of damage, this small but potentially constant heal just for critical hits can literally mean the difference between life and death while in combat. I know some of you may ask why I did not mention the Hurried weapon talent, and it was for one simple reason. SMG reload speeds are already very quick, with the fastest clocking in at 1.9 seconds, all the way up to the slowest at just 2.35 seconds. Hurried reduces reload speeds for every critical hit landed to a minimum of 1 second, and I can see some merit to this weapon talent. However, I see it as either I equip Hurried and I get reduced reload speeds, which are already quite fast for SMGs, or I could equip a more useful and potentially deadly weapon talent like Brutal, Unforgiving, or even Self-Preserved and receive much more value and use. Gear optimization will be at the heart of your 1.6 SMG build, and the following sections will show you step by step what gear to loot and or craft and which major and minor stat bonuses you should concentrate on. Since there have been a few changes to major attributes and percentage rolls, I felt that each gear piece needed to be reviewed thoroughly, starting off with your body armor. Body armor can roll natively with an armor ranging anywhere from 1,704 up to a perfect roll of 2,003. In addition, body armor can roll with all three main gear stats, firearms, stamina, and electronics, and will come with one of these main stats with a high roll ranging between 1,114 to 1,272 and two low rolls locked in at 205. Major attributes for your body armor in Update 1.6 will include enemy armor damage, all resistance, health, HP on kill, skill haste, and exotic damage resilience. Notice that additional armor, damage to elites, and protection from elites have all been removed. Enemy armor damage now rolls as a major attribute, and as I said, skill haste has now been added to the list of potential major attributes for your body armor. Minor attributes have remained unchanged, with both kill XP and ammo capacity returning unchanged from Update 1.5. Let's take a quick look at our potential body armor major attributes and decide which attributes are best for our SMG build. First up is exotic damage resilience, and it returns unchanged from 1.5, rolling anywhere from 9 to 11%. In past updates, I would have said that this attribute is completely useless, as players can easily avoid grenades and the mortars on Clear Sky Incursion simply by combat rolling away. However, times have changed, especially in the DZ, which is populated by players using high skill builds and equipping sticky bombs, seeker mines, flame turrets, and spamming grenades. Update 1.6 will usher in even higher skill power builds, and players will need something to lessen the effects of the aforementioned skills. Therefore, I am going to say that this attribute is situational. If you are a player that primarily plays PvE, open world, incursions, in-game missions, then you can pass on this attribute. On the other hand, if you primarily spend your hours roaming the DZ and engaging in PvP, you may want to consider this attribute for 1.6. Next up is the new attribute, All Resistance, and it does not roll with a percentage range, but instead awards you a flat 4% resistance to all status effects. This is by far the worst major attribute available for your body armor due to it rolling in absurdly low percentages. If you take into account that you can get resistance to effects like shock, disrupt, burn, etc. on your Kneepads in percentages ranging from 27 to 33%, you can see just how weak this new resistance is. Health on kill returns unchanged from 1.5 and can now roll from 4 to 5% on your body armor. Now, like exotic damage resilience, if this were Update 1.5, I would have quickly advised you to pass on this attribute, but again, times have changed. Changes to the effects of first aid and support station and the need to run high skill power in order to maximize your heals means that sources of sustainability are at a premium for the heavy firearms crit-centered player. Therefore, I will say that health on kill, like exotic damage resilience, is a situational attribute. If you are running with a high DPS build centered on dishing out as much damage as possible in the shortest amount of time, you will probably want to consider this attribute, as chances are you have traded off electronics for firearms and therefore your skill power and skills are quite weak. If you are a skill power player, I would pass on this attribute, as your heals should be plenty strong enough and return fast enough to provide sustainability on the battlefield. I've always been a fan of enemy armor damage, and in 1.5, players were forced to pile heaps of this attribute onto their builds in order to stand a chance in PvP in the Dark Zone. However, players will be going from their present average armor ratings of around 55% down to around 30 to 35% in Update 1.6, making this attribute far less important. Mix in the fact that enemy armor damage doesn't really seem to be working in PvP for Update 1.6, with it only adding a very small percentage to your damage against other players' armor. I mean, it literally adds a few hundred points more damage per shot right now in PvP. If you are a heavy PvP player, instantly pass on this attribute. If you primarily play PvE, good news! Enemy armor damage still works fine, and it can still be useful for your line of work. Next up is Skill Haste, and this utility attribute has been added to your body armor as a potential major attribute for Update 1.6. Skill Haste was only available on 2 gear pieces in Update 1.5 and in smaller percentages than we can now receive, with a general increase in rolls by about 50 to 100%. Update 1.6 is clearly built around skill power, and for those players not completely spec'd into this main stat, you will need to source as many small gains as possible to allow the use of your skills. Any attribute that reduces your skill cooldowns by 7 to 9% is extremely useful, and skill haste should not be overlooked, especially if you are more spec'd into firearms and DPS. And finally, we have arrived at health. Health can roll in a range of 14,184 up to a maximum roll of 16,674, and this is nearly a 250% increase in potential health rolls from Update 1.5 to 1.6. What makes these health rolls extremely strong is the fact that the health to stamina conversions have changed from 1.5 to 1.6 and has effectively doubled their strength. The past conversion was for every 30 points of health, you picked up 1 point in stamina. If that held true to Update 1.6, we could divide a maximum health roll of 16,674 by 30, and you get roughly 556 stamina. However, now in Update 1.6, that same health roll of 16,674 gets divided by 15, giving you 1,112 points of stamina, making health rolls the new armor for Update 1.6. You simply cannot choose any other major attribute over health. So going back to our body armor overview, I will emphatically say that health is a 100% requirement. After that, it will come down to your personal preference. Since I primarily play PvE, I will focus in on skill haste, health on kill, and enemy armor damage. For the PvP focused player, look at exotic damage resilience, skill haste, and health on kill. Your mask can roll with native armor ranging from 852 up to a perfect roll of 1001, and like your body armor, comes with 1 high main stat roll ranging from 1114 to 1272 and 2 low main stat rolls, both locked in at 205. In addition, your mask comes with 1 major attribute, 1 minor attribute, and health cannot be rolled onto your mask. Thus, your mask offers more variety in choosing attributes, as you are not required to spend 1 of them on health. Major attributes include critical hit chance, enemy armor damage, all resistance, health on kill, exotic damage resilience, and skill power. The mask offers many minor attributes and gives you a nice selection, including damage versus elites, burn resistance, disorient resistance, blind deaf resistance, and kill XP. Now, I covered almost all of these major attributes in my body armor breakdown just a moment ago, so I don't need to go through it again, but I would like to briefly cover critical hit chance and skill power. Critical hit chance rolls on the mask in terribly low percentages, and at just a 3 to 4% gain would be a total waste of your 1 major attribute roll. In addition, I have already elaborated on the fact that we have many more sources of critical hit chance in the game already, including your new SMG native talent, pulse, weapon mods, and even on your gloves. So at such a small percentage gain, I would avoid this attribute on the mask for our optimized SMG build. Skill power can roll anywhere between 8,532 up to a perfect roll of 10,030 and still uses the standard conversion method of 30 points of skill power equals 1 point of electronics. At a maximum roll of 10,030, this would equal roughly 330 points into electronics, and this is not a bad gain for the skill power build player. Minor attributes are pretty straightforward, with the standard selection of resistances remaining unchanged from Update 1.5. However, remember there is a change to resistances in Update 1.6, and that they will not function as a percentage chance to block the incoming damage type, but will instead guarantee that they reduce the time and damage inflicted by that status effect by the percentage amount. So if your mask has 17% burn resistance and your player is set on fire, the time you are on fire will be reduced by 17% and the damage inflicted by that fire will also be reduced by 17%. Among the minor attributes, burn resistance is the ideal choice, especially for players in the Dark Zone who are constantly being set on fire. Kill XP can come in handy for a player looking to rank up quickly or get the maximum amount of caches in the shortest amount of time, but this is way too specialized and situational to be a solid pick. Damage versus Elites rolls for 9 to 11% on the mask, and for the PvE-centered player, do not overlook this minor attribute, as that is a nice gain in damage, and can really come in handy when taking on swarms of Elites on challenge difficulty missions or heroic incursions. High enemy armor damage and damage versus elites comboed together can really turn you into an in-game steamroller, but will be more tailored for PvE than PvP. You can only have one major attribute on your knee pads, and since I have already covered each of these attributes in the previous body armor and mask discussions, I will quickly move through these 6 attributes. Skill power would be a wise choice for an electronics build and would add roughly 445 points worth of electronics to your build. Exotic damage resilience rolls on the knee pads in lower percentages than the body armor and mask, and at just 6.5 to 8% should not be selected as your major attribute. All resistance rolls at just 3%, and it's just not worth the thought at such a low percentage roll. Enemy armor damage also rolls in its lower percentage rolls of any of the gear pieces, and at just 3 to 4% will also be removed from consideration. The final 2 attributes are both extremely helpful for our optimized SMG build, but we can only choose one. Health rolls, like on the body armor, add its highest percentage in the game and can add nearly 1,112 points worth of stamina to your character without ever having to choose stamina as your main gear stat, therefore freeing you up to spec more into firearms or electronics. Critical hit damage rolls in decent percentages at 7 to 9%, and if you remember back towards the beginning of this guide video, I told you that the sources for critical hit damage have been reduced and percentages have shrunk moving into Update 1.6. Based on how your build is performing, you will need to make a decision to use your major attribute roll for either more health or more critical hit damage. Moving on to minor attributes, and we have already covered all of these, and the only one I would not recommend is Kill XP. Burn resistance is the ideal status effect resistance, and do not discount how valuable 12 to 15% damage versus elites can be for those players that attempt challenge difficulty missions and heroic incursions, as adding a flat 15% damage versus all elites can be damn useful. With all things considered for our optimized SMG build, we will need to select either health or critical hit damage, and this will be a constant balancing act between these two. Minor attributes are much easier to select from, as if you were leaning more towards PvE work, you simply can't forgo the potential 15% damage versus elites. If you plan on primarily spending your time in the DZ, the smart decision is to try for burn resistance. Your backpack can roll with native armor ranging from 1,135 up to 1,334, and high and low main stat rolls the same as the previously mentioned 3 gear pieces. There are only 4 major attributes that can roll on the backpack, including critical hit damage, health, skill power, and the newly added attribute weapon stability. For the minor attributes, burn, disrupt, and bleed resistances are available, as well as ammo capacity. I would instantly write off weapon stability for our optimized SMG build, as SMGs are inherently stable and accurate even without mods or additional bonuses. Health rolls on the backpack ranging from 11,347 up to 13,339, and at its highest roll, it represents roughly an 889 point gain to stamina. critical hit damage does roll in decent amounts, and at 9% could help us in trying to reach the 123% soft cap for critical hit damage and our SMG build. Finally, skill power is available in rolls ranging from 11,347 to 13,339, and at its highest roll percentage would represent a 445 point gain to skill power. For the purpose of our SMG build, I am going to instantly remove skill power and weapon stability, leaving us with just critical hit damage and health. Since the health rolls in smaller amounts on your backpack than say the body armor or knee pads, I might lean towards the critical hit damage. However, choosing the additional health is not a bad option. For the minor attributes, you simply can't go wrong with more burn resistance or ammo capacity, and honestly, I'm fine with either one. Your gloves are unique in that they roll with 3 major attributes and no minor attributes, and as before, will roll with 1 high main stat roll, 2 fixed low main stat rolls, and native armor ranging from 852 up to a perfect armor roll of 1001. 11 major attributes are available, including additional SMG, assault rifle, shotgun, LMG, pistol, and marksman rifle damage, along with critical hit chance, critical hit damage, enemy armor damage, health on kill, and skill haste. For our optimized SMG build, Savage Gloves are a necessity and will add a flat 7% critical hit chance to our overall crit bonuses and has no qualifier to activate. Additional SMG damage is a no-brainer and will eliminate the need for us to discuss any other damage types. I will also instantly remove critical hit chance, as we will already be gaining 7% from the Savage Gloves. Add critical hit damage to our list as a no-brainer, as for our build, a potential 17% gain is simply too high a percentage to pass up. This leaves us with enemy armor damage, health on kill, and skill haste, and honestly, any of these will work as long as you have Savage Gloves with both additional SMG damage and critical hit damage. This brings us to the final piece of gear, which is the holster, and it can roll with native armor ranging from 852 up to a perfect roll of 1001. In addition, the holster is unique in that it comes with all 3 main stats, firearm, stamina, and electronics, all rolled between 1,114 to a perfect roll of 1,272. There are just a few major attribute selections, which include critical hit chance, health, skill haste, and weapon reload speed, and no minor attributes available. Of the 4 major attributes available for the holster, the only one I would immediately eliminate for our optimized SMG build is weapon reload speed, as SMGs inherently reload quite quickly. Critical hit chance is not a bad option, but at only 3 to 4%, and the fact that critical hit chance sources are readily available, I would not rule this attribute out, but there are better options. Health is always a great option when available on your gear, and at a 7,092 to 8,337 roll, equates to roughly 556 points worth of stamina, and you will need extra health and stamina for prolonged life while in combat. Skill haste does roll on the holster, but in lower percentages than the body armor and gloves, and while it is not a bad choice, the 6 to 7% percentage rolls are a bit low. All in all, I would try for a holster above 1,200 in all 3 main stats and with as high a health roll as possible. Gear mods are an extremely useful resource for filling in small gaps in your build, and for our optimized SMG build, they will come in handy. Your gear can hold a total of 5 gear mods broken out across your gear in the following slots: 2 on the body armor, 1 on the mask, 1 on the knee pads, and 1 on the backpack. Gear mods can roll with 1 main stat bonus, firearm, stamina, or electronics, ranging from 228 to 267, and 1 attribute from the following and in the ranges listed: critical hit chance, health, exotic damage resilience, skill haste, skill power, and signature resource gain. Based on where your SMG build is at this point, I would instantly eliminate critical hit chance, exotic damage resilience, and signature resource gain. This leaves us with health, skill haste, and skill power. At maximum roll, the 1,869 health roll translates into 125 points worth of stamina, which can be useful in adding a little extra toughness to your character. Skill haste, for the reasons I pointed out in the gear optimization section, is going to be very important in Update 1.6, especially if you are not running a skill power build. And finally, skill power, when at maximum roll, translates into 111 points of electronics, which is rather a small gain. Once again, I would be looking towards the extra health and skill haste on all of my gear mods. 4 performance mod slots are available across your gear pieces in the following: 2 on the backpack, 1 on the knee pads, and 1 on the holster, and can vary among 22 different skills listed here. Based on your build, there are many good selections to choose from, but for our specific build, I would choose from either Pulse Critical Hit Damage at 2% or First Aid Self-Heal at 5 to 6%. You can stand to gain a maximum of 8% critical hit damage if you roll all 4 mods at a maximum of 2%, and 24% if you roll all 4 mods for First Aid Self-Heal, which is a huge amount and will be extremely useful for Update 1.6. Your equipped skills are always of great importance, and for an optimized SMG build, it goes without saying that First Aid, Self-Heal, and Pulse are a necessity and require no further elaboration. The final section of this optimized SMG build video has to do with weaponry, and more specifically, which SMG is best. Now, I have already covered this topic in depth and have a best-in-class SMG video already up on my channel that I originally created for Update 1.5. Since there are no slated buffs or nerfs to specific SMGs for Update 1.6, my ranking chart will still hold true and correct for Update 1.6. By the way, I will include a link to that best-in-class SMG video in the video description below, and make sure to check it out as it will answer any questions you may have. However, a very brief overview of that video will show you that the MP7 is still king of burst damage, while the PP19 is best for sustained damage. There are also many good options available in the Vector, AUG, and MP5 family of weapons. The final and no less crucial piece of information that you will need to consider when choosing your SMG besides weapon talents is base damage rolls. SMGs have small damage spreads, meaning that the difference between a minimum damage roll and maximum damage roll are usually separated by around 1,500 points. You will want to continually check your SMG against newer weapons that you loot in order to ensure that you have the maximum base damage weapon equipped at all times. For those of you wanting to know the method and math on how to calculate your weapon's base damage, you guessed it, I posted a video to my channel showing you step by step how to compute your base damage. I will also include a link to that video in the description below. Well, there you go, agents. Every last piece of information you could ever want or need on how best to build an optimized SMG build for Update 1.6. This move from 1.5 to 1.6 will be interesting for SMG users, as the monumental native weapon talent change from damage to chance will require a collective rewrite on how best to min-max your gear and talents. I again want to thank you for watching and apologize for the length of this particular video, but once I got going, I just kept adding more and more information, and it eventually morphed into this monster of a video that you now see. As always, I would greatly appreciate your feedback and thoughts on my optimized SMG build guide video for Update 1.6. Feel free to leave your ideas and feedback in the comment section below. In addition, if you could take the time to rate the video with a monstrous thumbs up, it would be greatly appreciated. If you want some more LtBuzzLitebeer and my division content in your life, make sure to pound that subscribe button and follow me on Twitter at LtBuzzLitebeer. If you have questions about a weapon or damage roll in the division, look no further than my comprehensive weapon review playlist and damage rolls tutorials to answer any and all of your questions. And remember, for my channel, likes, comments, subs are loved. Until my next division video, this has been LtBuzzLitebeer saying peace